And honestly, it's moments like that where you get to take those massive knockouts with Chien Pao that makes playing the deck so much fun. Hey everyone, Bruce from What's Popping here, and in today's video we're combining two of my favorite things, the Pokemon TCG and Comic-Con Africa. Now before we dive into the awesomeness that is brought to us by Unplug Yourself today and the incredible Pokemon TCG tournament that we had, we're going to talk about the fact that at Comic-Con this year you could meet Ash Ketchum in person. Veronica Taylor, the original voice actor for the English version of Pokemon, was with us for all 4 days of the convention. She was absolutely incredible. She hosted panels, she hosted meet and greets with fans, she even did some of the cosplay events and got involved in pretty much every aspect of the con. I got my Funko Pop signed by her and I got to meet her for a little while, which was absolutely incredible. I had a ton of fun. So if you do want to see more of that content and more con coverage in terms of Veronica's time with us, her panels, her meet and greets, all those kind of things, I am preparing a vlog video for the channel that's going to cover all of that goodness, and you definitely don't want to miss those videos coming out soon. We're also going to be running a giveaway in today's video, so if you like what you see, if you are getting into deck building yourself, whether you're a seasoned player or a brand new player, there's definitely going to be something for you in that giveaway, so hang around. Thanks to Solar Pop for sponsoring this video, sponsoring the giveaway, and let's dive into today's content. Now, as many of you know, I'm a big fan of Chien Pao. If you've been following the channel for a while, you know we've been moving towards building a Chien Pao deck, and that is exactly what we did for Comic-Con Africa. Now, I always recommend to people, if you're building a deck for the first time, make sure you choose a Pokemon that you really enjoy and that you're really passionate about, because at the end of the day, the Pokemon TCG is about having a ton of fun, and if you don't love the Pokemon you're playing with, then what is the point in the first place? So we went ahead, built a Chien Pao deck. This is the start of the deck, and what I thought was, let's go through the different Chien Pao products, or the different Pokemon products that are available here in South Africa. Let's look at them, and let's see what the cheapest and possibly easiest way to go ahead and build a competitive deck in the meta will be. Now, the reason I chose Chien Pao, firstly, as I said, it's a Pokemon I really enjoy. Secondly, there is an EX deck available for this off the bat. So that was sent to me via Solar Pop, and I must say, out of the Battle EX decks that are out there, which is a level 1 Pokemon product, I think that this is a really, really awesome product to start you off. You have a number of cards that are really useful off the bat to really help you to start building a really cool deck. So I'm going to show you what we kept from that product, what we took out, and then what we started to supplement the deck with. So of course, we kept the Chien Pao, the promo card that came with it. That is going to be our main attacker in the deck. We kept the 2 copies of Baxcalibur that were given to us in there as well. We kept the 3 copies of Frigibax. Great thing about these 3 Frigibax in particular is that they only have the 1 energy retreat cost, so that is always awesome. We kept the Bruxish. Funny enough, I had a few players that I played against wanting to know why Bruxish was in the deck. Basically, as an idea that if you are really struggling in that first turn, you end up with a card that might be inactive, such as Bruxish or Delibird, which give you the opportunity to at least draw some more cards at the end of your turn. If you are going second and you are taking your first turn, you have a good chance of at least using Double Draw or Vivid Charge to pick up some cards that you might need at the start of your next turn, or to start thinning the deck out as well. We did keep the 2 copies of Nest Ball, very important to start searching out some Pokemon that we need. 2 copies of Energy Retrieval, we kept those in the deck as well. 2 copies of Switch, those are staying. 1 copy of Jacques. And they ended up giving, I think, 18 copies of basic energy. We went ahead and kept 11 of those in. So we're going to be using some energy retrieval and those kind of things, because Chien Pao, when you are using that Hellblade attack, basically for each energy you discard from your Pokemon, you will be doing 60 additional damage to your opposing Pokemon. So it's all about making sure that you are able to run through, power up your Pokemon really quickly, have a great engine on there that is helping you to sort of accelerate energy onto your Pokemon, which is why Baxcalibur is there, and then taking those big knockouts with Chien Pao. A Chien Pao deck that is running can knock out pretty much anything in 1 turn. And honestly, it's moments like that where you get to take those massive knockouts with Chien Pao that makes playing the deck so much fun. So that's why I like this deck. It's a lot of fun to play, it's very easy to play, it's quite natural to play, and ultimately that's why I went along with it. The cards we ended up discarding from that Battle EX box are Octobax, so we went ahead and played a whole lot of rare candies, you'll see just now, so we can go straight from Frigibax into our Baxcalibur. We discarded 1 Delibird, 3 copies of Marill, 2 copies of Azumarill, 3 copies of Buizel, 2 copies of Floatzel, and then the trainers, there were some useful ones, those are the ones we kept, but Nimona as a supporter, we got rid of her. Youngster we got rid of, 4 Great Balls that we're not using, a Palpad, Pokegear 3.0. I think you could make an argument for using both Palpad and Pokegear 3.0 in this deck, but again we just didn't use those, and the remaining energy cards. Moving on from there, I thought, well, the next product out there that a lot of people are going to be looking at, and possibly the first port of call when you're going to look at upgrading your decks, is of course the Trainer's Toolkit. So again, this was sent to me by Solar Pop, and I thought, well, let's have a look through the Trainer's Toolkit and see what's going to be useful in there to start buffing up our Chien Pao build. And of course, first things first, in that Trainer's Toolkit you do get a copy of Arceus and Arceus V-Star. Arceus, let me know in the comments how you guys say it. I've always gone with Arceus. So that include these as a great extra attacker to have in your deck, as well as having that V-Star ability to draw or to search for any 2 cards that you want once this Arceus V-Star is in play. A couple of copies of Irida, so really important for this deck. You need to get those Baxcaliburs running, and Irida is going to allow you to search out important items such as rare candy to get your Frigibax evolved into Baxcalibur, basically allowing you to search for water Pokemon and an item card, so helping you to find the missing piece that you need to get your Frigibax evolved into a Baxcalibur while skipping that crucial Arctivax step. 2 copies of Boss's Orders. Always got to have at least 1 copy, I maintain, of Boss's Orders in your deck, no matter what deck you are running. We kept, we put in another copy of Jacques, just to help us get those evolution Pokemon out. Professor's Research, we ran 2 copies of those. And then 2 copies, of Rare Candy coming out of the Trainer's Toolkit. 2 copies of Ultra Ball, and 2 copies of Nest Balls. That took up to a total of 4 Nest Balls, 2 Ultra Balls, and that is what we ran from those products. So, whoa, okay, so we're having a lot of fun, we're building a deck, we're seeing what cards Bruce used, we're kind of seeing that maybe he didn't know what he was doing the first time and he learns a lot from the con. Hopefully that's what you take from the video. But you're thinking to yourself now, Bruce, you said at the start of the video there was a giveaway, so what's going on with that? Don't worry, I got you covered. My friends over at Solar Pop has sponsored us 4 League Battle decks to give away to you guys. So all you have to do to enter that giveaway, if you want to start your own Pokemon journey, if you want to enhance your Pokemon journey, you're looking for specific cards, you're looking for new combinations, that's what we got you for. So all you have to do if you want to enter that giveaway, go ahead, subscribe to the channel if you aren't already, drop a like on this video, share it with a Pokemon trainer out there that you think will benefit from a video like this, and then comment down below with what deck you are building or what deck you're playing with at the moment. Drop in those comments, let me know, and best of luck, hoping you win one of those Pokemon League Battle decks. So that is the basis for our deck, was those 2 really key products, the Chien Pao EX Battle Deck and the Trainer's Toolkit. Now the rest are cards that I kind of had to either pull from packs or beg, borrow and steal, and I'll quickly show off what I used to fill out my Chien Pao deck, and then also talking about some of the results and how the play on the day actually went. Now, of course, you're going to need more than 1 Chien Pao in your deck. I was fortunate enough to pull the Art Rare, and I ended up pulling another copy of Chien Pao. So I ended up running 4 copies of Chien Pao. I managed to get 1 from a friend. I added another copy of Baxcalibur, so we had 3 copies of Bax. Another copy of Frigibax. This one was the only one that I had. It is the 2 retreat cost Frigibax. Radiant Greninja, really important card for this deck. For most decks these days, actually, to have that concealed cards ability helping you as an extra draw engine, so really useful to have that, and also for taking those 2 prize knockouts against things like Lost Box decks. So really important to have that Radiant Greninja in there. Articuno, a really useful card I added as a result of the ability, basically. So basically allowing my basic Pokemon to add 10 more to their damage. So really useful when attacking with Chien Pao if you're just not hitting that exact number you need. Manaphy for a bit of bench protection, keep my Pokemon on the bench safe. Spiritomb, I was expecting to come up against quite a few Mew decks at this tournament, so I figured a copy of Spiritomb would not go astray in stopping those Pokemon V abilities. I played 2 copies of Clara, just basically again to help me to get Pokemon out of my discard pile, helping me to get energy out of my discard pile as well, because we are going to be discarding a lot of energy with our Chien Pao. 1 copy of Iono, just really useful, hand disruption at the end of the game. Never going to go too far astray, so that's really useful. Then I played 1 copy of Worker. It's the only copy of Worker that I have. Basically, I started to get worried about cards like Path to the Peak, and figured that I need to make sure that I don't have my abilities turned off during my matchups. So I figured, well, Worker is a nice card to have, allows you to draw 3 cards and discard a Stadium in play, so it helps get rid of that pesky Path to the Peak. A further 2 copies of Rare Candy, really trying to make sure sure that I got those Baxcaliburs evolved as quickly as possible. 2 copies of Superior Energy Retrieval. Again, we've got to get those energies out. We only have 11 in the deck, and we're going to burn through them quite quickly. 2 copies of Energy Retrieval, a little less costly to use than Superior Energy Retrieval, and 2 copies of Artisan. So the reason I chose Artisan is basically that it does give me at least a chance to search something out like a Manaphy or a Frigibax or a Spiritomb if I needed it, but also I wanted some extra stadiums in play to try and combat those pesky Path to the Peak cards. So let's chat about how the actual tournament went, and then we'll discuss about where I'm going forward and identifying some mistakes that I definitely made with this deck build that I hope to rectify with another awesome product. Now, I must say overall, this was my first time engaging in a fully competitive Pokemon TCG tournament, and I was incredibly nervous, but thanks to our friends over at Solarpop and the amazing team at Unplug Yourselves Today for putting on such an incredible tournament. It was so much fun to play in this kind of vibe where you're actually in a proper competitive setting, playing against some really competitive players. There were some top players attracted to this event, which again got my nerves even higher because there were a couple of players who had recently been playing at the Worlds over in Yokohama that we came up against. But again, I must say, this community that is the Pokemon TCG community within South Africa, across the world, just seems to be one of the most wholesome and lovely communities out there. I highly encourage anybody who's thinking about starting to play Pokemon to get out there, buy a basic deck, buy an EX deck, buy a battle box, whatever's going to get you into the game for the first time. Go to your local card store and start playing, because you really do have a lot of fun. You have an opportunity to meet new people, bond over this shared interest and this shared passion for Pokemon, and it really is a lot of fun. If you are playing in Joburg, I highly recommend go out to places like Poke Depot. Those are going to be great for you. The staff there are super friendly, super helpful. All the people that I've played against and with there at those practice events have been a lot of fun to play with, and it also gives you some friendly faces when you go up to an event like the one at Comic-Con Africa that is a bit more competitive and you don't know who's who in the zoo. If you're out in Pretoria, I highly recommend Jig's Hobbies. I'm going to be playing an event there in the next couple of weeks, so if you want to find out more about that, shoot me a message on Instagram and I'll definitely chat with you about where you can go and start playing some awesome Pokemon. But let's chat about how our tournament went down. The tournament format was 5 rounds of Swiss, where it was best of 3 in each round. First match, I ended up coming up against a Chien Pao clone, and that was really interesting for me because they had a fairly similar deck build, definitely a few superior cards to mine, and thankfully I went first in the first game, and with Chien Pao that is a big advantage. So I was basically able to, because I went first, start to take knockouts way before my opponent, and thankfully clinch the first game of those 3 pretty quickly and pretty straightforward. We kind of took knockouts back and forth, and I was able to claim that match, or that game I should say, with Chien Pao rather easily. Second game, I won as well, but I would say this one was a little bit more of a case of luck being on my side, because my opponent ended up prizing both of his copies of Baxcalibur. I noticed that about halfway through the game that he wasn't accelerating energy. He had searched through his deck a few times and he just couldn't get a Baxcalibur on the board, and I figured, shame, he's actually prized both of those. So that game was a pretty straightforward walkover for me, and I took the first match 2-0. So that was really exciting, built my confidence, everything was going great until round 2, where I came up against Ashley, who was cosplaying as Iona, which was really funny because in the first round I actually ended up discarding an Iona, and I apologized to her because I needed to get rid of it in order to draw some cards with concealed cards. She played a Raikou deck, so again really based on like quick knockouts, and she had a ton of Path to the Peak in her deck, which absolutely demolished me. I think both games she steamrolled me. I was unable to get going, I was unable to get my Baxcaliburs into play too quickly, and she played Path to the Peak very early. I was unable to find my Worker or my Artisan Stadiums to get those out of the way, and she did tell me at the end of the first game that even if I had got rid of it, she had 2 more copies of Path to the Peak in her hand. So she was ready to go with Path to the Peak, shut me off very quickly, and then started to take those knockouts very quickly. So I was humbled very quickly in my second game. Third game came up against a Lugia. This one I must say was a lot closer. It was really back and forth. Lugia is one of those decks at the moment that is doing very well in the meta. A lot of people arguing that it is one of the top decks out there. As a sheer powerhouse, it just kind of overwhelmed me a little bit. I was a bit slow in getting set up. I could not get my Baxcaliburs onto the board quickly enough to start taking those crucial knockouts against the Lugia V before it evolves into a V-Star, or even to start taking on those V-Stars once they're in the active. Once they got on top of me, it was just a case of them steamrolling me for that game. And the same thing basically happened in the second game. I was unable to get rolling quick enough to start accelerating energy and getting through it. So I was starting to notice really by the third game that I definitely had a problem with consistency in my deck. I wasn't able to get the cards that I needed to set up at the beginning of the game and start getting through them quick enough to start powering up my Chien Pao and getting through those knockouts. Came back for 2 more rounds of Pokemon, and I ended up playing against somebody who's a previous Yu-Gi-Oh player and had actually been playing in the Yu-Gi-Oh championships the day before. So again, coming up against these really competitive players from different backgrounds is just so much fun at these events. We had a lot of fun. We were chatting throughout our match. We were sort of taking knockouts one at a time. And I managed to, in this game, set up really quickly against a Ting Lu deck. So it was my first time playing against a Ting Lu sort of Ting Lu Gapejaw Bog kind of setup that they had going. Thankfully, I was able to set up real quickly in the first round, and they saw what was happening and they scooped, so I ended up winning the first game. Second game, they managed to get Gapejaw Bog and Ting Lu into play very quickly, so basically before I could even start setting up, all of my Pokemon that I was putting onto the bench had damage markers on them already, and because of Ting Lu's ability, I was not then able to actually use their abilities, so my Baxcaliburs didn't work, and my opponents ended up taking that win. The third game was kind of back and forth. I think we were very even, and we ended up calling it a tie as time ran out. So really fun game to come up against a Ting Lu deck, something I hadn't anticipated, something I hadn't seen before, and just a really lovely game of Pokemon. Moving on to the last game of the day, we ended up playing against Jonah, who actually finished in the top 100 at Worlds recently. Everyone had been talking to me all day about how good Jonah was and how nervous they were to play him, and I was very surprised that I was playing him because my record obviously was only 1 win, 1 draw, and then 2 losses, so it wasn't looking too great for me, and he had just had a wretched day. He had come up against Charizard decks, he had come up against I think a couple of Lugias, but those Charizard decks had really wreaked havoc on his Lost Box deck, and had a lot of fun. Learned so much playing against Jonah, and I learned so much about how the Lost Box deck work. I hadn't really seen them before, I hadn't played against them too much online either, so it was great to have a chance to actually play against somebody who has been to Worlds, who has seen so many different aspects of the Pokemon TCG, and what I learned from that was really crucial, to see how he operated, how he went about playing his cards, the sort of methodology that he followed. He gave me a few great tips, and he did beat me 2-0 in that match. I was unable in the first match to get my Chien Pao and Baxcalibur up and running. It took me 3 or 4 turns to get that Baxcalibur. By then he already had a ton of cards in the Lost Zone, and his Sableye was just wreaking havoc on my bench. And in the second game it followed a very similar pattern. I got a bit closer to taking a few more prizes in the second match, but at the end of the day he did end up steamrolling me. So this deck that we built, is it useful? Well, yes and no. At the beginning, I would say, for a player who's playing their first competitive tournament, this deck is going to give you a chance at a reasonable price. You're not going to go in and spend a ton of money for a deck that is going to, really require a lot of knowledge, a lot of forethought, a lot of foresight. This is a very intuitive deck to play, and it does give you a chance. The deck that ended up finishing second at the tournament was a Chien Pao deck. So there's definitely something to be said for these Chien Pao decks in these tournaments, and recently I see Grand Shen took one to the top 8 over in the States at a regional event there, so Chien Pao is definitely worth playing, and I think that this kind of build is a good basis to start you on your journey towards building a competitive Chien Pao deck. However, there are some adjustments that I definitely needed to make, and I think since making those adjustments, I've definitely seen a change in the way that I've been playing. I've seen a change in the consistency of my deck, and as a result, I'm seeing myself win more and more games compared to what I actually experienced at Comic-Con. So I'm going to quickly show you what I did in that build. So the products I actually ended up using to try and buffer up this deck a little bit more was the Palkia V-Star League Battle deck. And this again was sent to me by Solarpop, and I figured let's see if this is the better product to use, because it is a water-based deck as well, and is already a stage 3 Pokemon product. What cards can we take out of that product, put into this existing Chien Pao deck, because I still want to play with Chien Pao. I love the Pokemon, I love the fact that we can take the big knockouts. How can we go ahead and make this a competitive deck? So I did take that product and looked at a few cards, and these are the cards that I started to include in my deck from that. So I'm now running a further 2 copies of Irida. So we're going to go ahead and put those over here with our Iridas. So we're now running 4 copies of Irida to help with hopefully getting that consistency early on and getting the board set up with those Baxcaliburs and the Frigibacks early on, and then getting them evolved those Baxcaliburs by searching out the Rare Candy and the Baxcalibur. I'm playing a copy of Hisuian Heavy Ball just so I can see what's in my prizes and know what's going on there, because man, I can't do the maths. I look through my deck and I can never remember what was there in the first place. And using the Hisuian Heavy Ball, you can at least get a basic Pokemon out of your prizes and see what you have prized for the match, so you're not too worried about what's there. I'm playing 3 copies of Bidoof. Basically, I would like to have a draw engine that is not going to be affected by Path to the Peak. So 3 copies of Bidoof and 2 copies of Bibarel, so that I can use Industrious Incisors to be making sure I have a hand of at least 5 cards every turn. Of course, Red Ink Greninja has got a rule box, so Path to the Peak turns with that ability, so it does really hurt you once that card's in play. 4 copies of Battle VIP Pass. This is to make sure we get set up early on in the game. I didn't have any copies of these before, and now having these from the Palkia V-Star deck is a massive, massive, massive help. So those are the cards that I included from the Palkia V-Star deck. And then again, going back to my own stock and looking through what I had available, I have added a copy of Pokestop. I would love to have a couple more, but I realize I only have 1 copy at the moment. This again helps you to go through your deck, go through the top 3 cards on your deck, discard anything that isn't an item card, and keep anything that is. So rare candies, battle VIP passes in the first turn, nest balls, ultra balls, those are all going to be able to be got hold of from this Pokestop. Of course, your switches as well. So we do have a copy of Pokestop. Again, it is also an option to add to the deck to make sure that we are not getting Path to the Peaked, and getting rid of that as soon as possible once we find it in play. And then 2 copies of Super Rod. So that is going to be helping us to replace energy and Pokemon that are in our discard pile. And with that, I'm sure you're all asking me, well, great, you've added all these cards, but you're only allowed to have 60 in your deck. So what are you removing to keep your deck legal? And I have an answer for you. We are going to be removing 1 copy of Rare Candy. We are removing the Frigibax, who is the 70 HP but double energy retreat cost. So that is 2 cards removed. We are then also going to be removing 1 copy of Energy Retrieval, the free version. So Energy Retrieval allowing you to return 2 basic energy cards to your hand. 1 copy of that is going to go. We're removing 1 copy of Ultra Ball. I think that we have enough searching potential between Irida, our Nest Balls, our Concealed Cards, our Artisan, and of course Bibarel, using the ability to draw until you have 5 in your hand. So that is going to go. We still have 1 Ultra Ball there just in case, but that Ultra Ball is really there to help us get hold of our Baxcalibur if we don't have an Irida in hand. We're getting rid of 1 copy of basic water energy, so that is going to go. 1 copy of Clara is returning back to the binder. 1 copy of Articuno as well. Articuno is going to go. Our 2 copies of Professor's Research have been removed as well. Our 2 copies of Jacques have been removed. Again, I think Irida is doing the job that Jacques would be doing with this kind of deck. We are searching for those Baxcaliburs, those evolution Pokemon. Delibird is finally being removed as well as Braxish. Braxish is gone. And then we are removing, which may be a bit interesting to some, we are removing our Arceus V and our Arceus V-Star. I found that, throughout the tournament and when I've been playing online, I'm only really using this card for the Starbirth ability, and I think we have enough other cards to search out exactly what we need at the start of our game. So that is how the deck is looking, guys. Let me know what you think. If you're a skilled player out there and you've been building decks for a while, do you think I've missed anything, or is this the kind of perfect deck setup? Do you think that there should be something else added? I personally think maybe a couple more Pokestops wouldn't go astray, as that's something that I definitely use online a lot and has got me out of a few sticky situations where I cannot get that Baxcalibur into play. And if you're building your first deck, let me know. I'd love to hear from you. I want to know what Pokemon you're building your deck around, what your inspiration is, and why you've chosen that Pokemon as the main attacker or the icon for your deck build.